In the year 1060, France was a kingdom still struggling to find its strength and unity under the crown. The lands of the French realm were scattered and fragmented, weaker than the powerful duchies and counties that surrounded them. The King of France, though wearing the crown, ruled directly over only a modest domain centered around Paris and Orléans. Beyond that lay powerful vassals, the Dukes of Normandy, the Counts of Flanders, and the Lords of Aquitaine, men who often acted as rulers in their own right. This was the France that the young Philip I would inherit, a kingdom united in name but divided in power, standing at a crossroads between feudal independence and royal authority. To understand Philip's place in history, we must first understand the dynasty he was born into, the Capetian Dynasty. The Capetians had begun their rule just a few generations earlier in 987, when Hugh Capet was chosen as king of the Franks. His descendants followed a crucial tradition. They crowned their heirs during their own lifetimes, ensuring a smooth succession and preventing disputes that had so often torn earlier kingdoms apart. This practice helped the Capetians maintain an unbroken line of kings, each inheriting not only the throne but the legitimacy of the dynasty itself. By the middle of the 11th century, the Capetians had endured more than 70 years of cautious and deliberate rule. Though not yet the powerful monarchs of later centuries, they had secured a stable and hereditary crown, a quiet yet significant achievement in medieval Europe. When Henry I of France, the son of Robert the Pious, reigned from 1031 to 1060, he maintained his dynasty's cautious approach to governance. He carefully balanced the ambitions of his powerful nobles with the rising influence of neighboring realms, especially the Duchy of Normandy. Henry's reign ended in 1060, leaving the throne to his young son Philip, who was only about 7 years old. Because of his youth, the kingdom was placed under a regency, led by his mother Anne of Kiev and Baldwin V, Count of Flanders. This regency period was vital for Philip's survival and the stability of the crown, as it prevented opportunistic nobles from exploiting the minority of the king. Philip I was the first French king to bear that name. Philip itself, being of Greek origin, introduced to France through his mother's Eastern heritage. His early years were molded by the traditions of Western feudalism, grounding him in the customs and hierarchies of medieval Europe. At the same time, his Kievan Rus lineage introduced cultural influences that gave him a cosmopolitan background rare among French monarchs of his time. As Philip reached adulthood, he slowly assumed full control of his government, marking the beginning of his independent rule. His reign, lasting from 1060 until his death in 1008, spanned nearly half a century, making him one of the longest reigning French kings of the Middle Ages. During his early years as ruler, France remained politically overshadowed by the growing power of its neighboring realms. Chief among them was William, Duke of Normandy, who in 1066 conquered England and became known to history as William the Conqueror. This event dramatically shifted the balance of power in Western Europe, leaving the Capetian kings in a delicate and uncertain position. The King of France was, in theory, the overlord of the Duke of Normandy, yet that same duke had become one of Europe's most powerful monarchs as the King of England. Philip I's challenge was to maintain the independence and dignity of his crown amid these shifting dynamics. He pursued a cautious policy, seeking to keep peace with powerful vassals while slowly strengthening the royal domain. He interfered at times in the affairs of neighboring lords, often favoring one noble over another to maintain a careful balance of power. However, he generally avoided large military ventures, knowing they could overextend his limited resources. His reign was also marked by a controversial personal episode that deeply affected his standing with the Church. Around 1092, Philip repudiated his lawful wife Bertha of Holland and took Bertrada of Montfort, who was already married to another noble, as his partner. This scandal led to his excommunication by the Pope, a serious blow in an age when royal legitimacy depended heavily on church approval. Meanwhile, the First Crusade began during the later years of his reign, in 1095, when Pope Urban II called upon the Knights of Christendom to liberate the Holy Land. Philip himself did not take part, partly due to his strained relations with the Church, but many of his vassals, including the Norman and French nobility, joined the expedition. The crusade would elevate the prestige of many of his subjects, but not necessarily that of the Capetian crown. Despite these setbacks, Philip managed to preserve the monarchy and pass it intact to his son Louis VI, known as Louis the Fat. It was Louis who would begin the true expansion of royal power in France, laying the groundwork for the centralized monarchy that the Capetians would eventually build. By the time Philip I died in 1108, France was still a patchwork of semi-independent lordships that limited the reach of royal authority. Even so, the crown had endured for another generation, a quiet yet significant victory in an era when dynasties could collapse within a single lifetime. His long reign, often overshadowed by more dynamic rulers abroad, marked a period of consolidation rather than conquest for the French crown.